Well, welcome. What we're going to wind up doing is showing how to go ahead and create a 3D boring bar. And we're also going to go ahead and label it and do a couple of different tips in that for you. I get asked quite frequently on how to go ahead and make multiple inserts with one 3D tool. So this way you don't have to save a tremendous amount of different tools with just different inserts into the library. I got just a very quick sample here and stuff. We'll take a look at operation 1 here. And I'm going to go ahead and show you that this is a case where maybe someone wants to go ahead and do a 15 thousandths radius. You'll see I have a 15 thousandths radius. And then, all of a sudden someone wants to change their mind and go ahead and do a 30-second radius. So for example, I'm going to come up with a 30-second radius. And really all this is done with one tool. Also, when I do this, you don't have to, but a little tip that I wind up doing is not only do I go ahead and put the 3D tool in here, I actually like to go ahead and put the name of the tool right on the boring bar as well. You can see how nice and clean that is. There are many times where people give me a model and I'm not sure exactly where it come from, whether it be Kennametal, Sandvik, and etc. all the way down Iskar. I just don't want to assume that's the right bar. So for me, what I wind up doing is I like to go ahead and actually label that, and I'll show you that in the video as well. The next thing too is the same thing with the insert. What happens is even though I labeled the boring bar, I'll put this one up here on the screen here, and you'll see I'll kind of move it over a little bit as I have two inserts in here. And you'll see that I also have the name in here as well, and we can go ahead and modify this. So there's a lot of things in this video, so it's going to be a little bit extensive, but keep watching, and hopefully in that you'll get some good tips and tricks from this one here, and we'll get started. Okay, so all this stuff is wind up being too where I'm going to go ahead and save this off. It's going to be one download. You'll have a couple of different sample files, and we'll get you started. First of all, what let's go ahead and do is do a file new, and when we do a file new, I'm going to be in this case, it doesn't matter, 2023 and 2024 is what I'm working with. In this case here, I'm going to be working with 2023. So the first thing is you work with a tooling vendor. I got a great tooling vendor that's listed over by me into the Cleveland Northern area, Rich Ford, and maybe he sent me over some tools and that we want to go ahead and get started on making a part for. So what happens is they're going to go ahead and send you, whether go ahead from Nova or whatever, and they're going to give you some information, and right off the bat I'm looking for this catalog. Now I am going to tell you, again, I'm going everything from scratch all the way through. So again, even though this video may be a little lengthy, hopefully it'll fill in some gaps in that for many of you and you know how to get the tool as well. The first thing I like to do is go to the catalog from the Excel file, and I'm going to go ahead and Control C for me. That's obviously a copy and paste command inside of Windows. Now I'm going to move that on the screen, and the next thing I'll do is I'll go ahead and go to the Kennametal site. So obviously, Kennametal, and just subscribe and things of that nature. I work with all the tooling vendors, so don't be surprised when one video is this and the other one's something different. And at the very top, after you get to the kennametal.com, you can just go ahead and do Control V and go ahead and search for that tool, and we'll take a look as it comes up. Now it does come up and it gives us a lot of different information here. It gives us our catalog number, screw size, dimensions, all these good things and that we're taking a look for. What we want to go ahead and do is pretty much go ahead and get this tool downloaded. We want to go ahead and do as quick as possible. If you want to double check your numbers, you can as well. There again, this is the number that I have, and this is the number that I searched for right here. So this is the 750 boring bar that we're looking for. Okay, so after we go ahead and get this one here, we're going to go ahead and do a downloads. Now, many people ask me about, if you want to get to a detailed or anti-collision, and some are more detailed than the next. I'll kind of do both as I get started. So for an example, in particular case, what I'll wind up doing is I'll just go ahead and just do a 3D graphical step file. I'll go ahead and download that, and I'll let that generate. And then you just give it a little bit, and what we'll wind up doing is we're going to put this together here. So I'm going to go ahead and have this ready to go. This is, again, my boring bar. Now when it downloads, mine's going to be going down into my download section, and you'll see it can be completed here just with a little bit, and then we'll get started with the insert as well, so we'll have both of them there. Now I do like to start with one at a time, and the reason for that is because I like to go ahead and Control C and Control V and not get confused. So I download that. It comes over here. Here's that zip file, and I'm going to simply go ahead and show in folder, And again, everything I'm doing is live here. I'm just going to go ahead and show you how this gets run. All right, so there's my zip folder, and that's going to be my boring bar. So the first thing that I'm going to take a look at right here is I'm going to go ahead and minimize that. I don't need this for a second either, so I'm going to go ahead and minimize my Excel. And of course, we can't go ahead and just, do a zip file and drag it into Mastercam, so we double click on it. And again, this is my step file that I have. They have some different ones with GTM. Those are the ones that have detailed information and so on. But my number that I have here is correct right here. And I simply just left click. And again, I can't drag it in there because I really need to copy and paste that somewhere. So again, I would go ahead and copy. And again, I can go right into wherever I want to and paste that. Now, to give you an idea on how I kind of go ahead and place it in there is when I go ahead and do something, I'll go back over into my desktop and I'm going to go ahead and go into my demo tools. And when I go into my demo tools, I have things broken out, my tooling and fixturings, and I'm going to go to my tooling and I'm going to go to Kenmental here, and you'll see I have lathe and mill. There's my lathe and there's my holder, and I can put this 750 holder in there. I'm not saying you have to do this, but you'll find out that if you have a great structure, it doesn't take long to go ahead and put many different holders in there and choose what you want. In this case, this is the holder that I'm going to be grabbing and stuff right here is from the step file. Now what I wound up doing is when I pasted in there, I simply went to the properties and I went ahead and just typed in whatever I want, but I kept that number in there. And I kept that number in there because it was nice and easy for me to go ahead and keep. So again, I'm going to go ahead and hit Control C right there. I'm going to be using that here in a second. All right, that's the number that I found, and that's my description. So I take the step file over, I drop it in here, and what I'll wind up doing is go ahead and make sure that I have that located right. Let me make sure I have that step file correct in here. There we go. Select OK. And this is what I've got. I'm not worried about orientating the bar. I'll kind of show you how to do that with the tool. But one of the first things I wind up doing, and it's a habit for me, is I will simply go ahead and only go ahead and pick on the holder. And I'll even pick the screw for you as well and hit Alt-E. What I'm going to wind up doing next is going into my levels. And you'll notice that all these levels are here. It's normal, cuts, no cuts, things of this nature. But I'm gonna just window over everything right now and right click and pull it to a different level. I'm going to actually change it up here, tell it to move it to 1, and I'm going to go ahead and tell it this one's going to wind up being an ID boring bore. All right. So again, I like to be specific when I'm doing something, and it just takes just a little bit of time to kind of get this organized. Everything else I'm really not worried about looking at this point. I'm going to actually turn these off so that way even if I hit my Alt-E, the only thing I have is my boring bar. I'm going to concentrate on that first. Pretty simple. Now, as you see in the video, the next thing I wound up doing too is I just don't like having just a regular boring bar. I don't know where it comes from or anything else. So let me give an example of what I do real quick. I just go ahead and grab my gnomon. I touch the top and I go to my arrow. I get it nice and, located under that X. And all I'm going to wind up doing is just not even calling it anything. I just want to make sure my T-plane and C-plane are there and select OK. Next, I'll go ahead and go to that top view that we have, but it didn't change view. So you want to make sure that when you go to your plane, just hit that G view right there, and that'll get you nice and straight. Okay. I don't really need it, like I said, as my WCS, just my construction plane and my tool plane. If you don't like to see the crosshairs, just turn that off as well. I'm not worried about the location of the gnomon as well. Matter of fact, I can go ahead and turn that gnomon off just by simply going to a view and turning that off. What I really got it for is I want to go ahead and do a drafting right here. I'm going to do a note. And in the note, I'm going to go ahead and put the Kenmental. So I've got that. I like to do caps, by the way. Kenmental. And this is where I do the Control V because I can't remember things really good. So I pop that over there, and I've got a nice Kenmental line that's in there. Now, many of you probably wonder why I use drafting other than letters, and I always go over this in class, but to be short about it, the reason for that is because when you're using letters, you can always go back and change anything that you want. Now, in this case, I made vectors, so let's go ahead and change this a little bit, and I'll explain what I'm getting ready to do here. I'm going to delete this out of here. I'm going to do drafting, and I'm going to do a note again. Now, when I do notes, I like to go ahead and go over to the advanced, and I don't want to create geometry right off the bat. So if it is clicked on, you can click it off. All I'm going to do is go back over here and show you a difference here. So let's put Kenmental in there. There again, Control V. and simply go ahead and place that somewhere on the screen. Now the reason why I did this is because unlike creating a wireframe letter or having your note and vectorize it, I can always double click on this at any time and change something on this. So if I wind up changing, hey, look, I want to do Mastercam inside of there and so on, that can all be there and I can do whatever I want. So it's nice and editable and I don't have to worry about anything there. So I'm going to double click on it one time and again, get rid of what I don't need. Okay, now I like to go ahead and solid my into the bar as well, the name. So what I'm going to do on that one there is just kind of give it a little bit of flavor by picking something onto this type. Now the type can be anything that you want. In this case, if I do Rockwell and tell it I'm going to do a bold and pick it, that's kind of what comes up. And unlike the letters, look at how I can just stretch that out there, and that becomes pretty good. And if you need to do some character spacings, you type in whatever you need and place it where you want to go to as well. So for example, I kind of want to go right over in this area, and I always like to go ahead and put it to the left side just in case someone cuts that bar off there. There you go. Everything looks good, and you're ready to go. Now remember, I put that into a note, so anytime I want to double click on it, I can change that and it'll automatically be ready to go. But it looks pretty good to me, and I'm happy with that. The next thing is going to wind up being is I kind of like to put the name inside of that bar. So I simply go ahead and do a solid extrude. And when I do a solid extrude, I just make sure I hit the wireframe, hover over the note that I have, and select OK. In this case, what I'm going to do is go ahead and tell it that I want to go ahead and cut the body maybe 10 thousandths and maybe through both directions. You can see that if I hover over and so on like that, I want to make sure that I extrude this through this part here. So again, there's a create body or cut body. You also notice that when I go ahead and do this, I hit it one time and then I did it one more time, and now it cut through the whole thing, and there you go. Again, keep in mind, the reason why I use that note is because anytime I want to, I can simply go ahead and change the note, and it'll automatically go ahead and restrike the pose into this kind of metal, a boring bar. If you want to get fancy, you can always go ahead and change the face. Again, if you want to change it by color or so, you just double click on the bottom on anywhere you want to, and again, it'll come up on the screen. I just do it for basically I can see a boring bar very quickly. And it doesn't show up into the verify method like this, but I like to keep my boring bar when I'm done anyway, so I can easily go ahead and see some numbers. I'll just continue on just a little bit here, not finish the whole thing, and select OK. Just give you an idea. There you go, nice kind of metal boring bar. If I click on it, hit Alt E, again I can just see the letters and the way I'm going. So I can absolutely get a good indication of this is my boring bar and continue on. All right, so let's go ahead and get started more. So the next thing I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and do a 3D tool. Well, in order to do a 3D tool, I'm going to have to have some kind of lathe in here. And I don't have that, so I'm going to go ahead and simply go do a machine, lathe, and I'm going to go ahead and just use any default that I have. All right, so now I go to the turning and go to the lathe tool mode. And again, there's many different tools you have down here. These are stick tools. And you can really tell because of the way they're defined by just hitting a slight blue color. You either have a yellow or orange. And I want to get something that's really accurate. So I'm going to right click in here and just do a create 3D tool. Now as I do this, I can type anything I want. I'm going to go ahead and type in again Kennametal. And I might go ahead and put 0.750 boring bar. Something that tells me of what I want, so I don't have to keep worrying about looking at it and finding it. Tool 1's what I want, and tool station number 1's what I want as well. And I'm in inch mode, and I'll hit next. The next thing I'll do is I'll go to the add component, click on it, and tell it I want to define a component. Because I don't need to go ahead and search in another file, all I need to do is click on this one, which tells me I can use it from the graphics window. There's my boring bar. I simply go ahead and pick on what I want, and I also do like to use a screw as well, and any other selections that I have to make it more realistic, and hit end of selection. All right, so now we have the boring bar in here, and I'm just moving this around with my cursor. It's going to ask us again for the holder. I don't mind going ahead and even putting the Control V in there, right? And then just basically putting the 0.750 boring bar in there. Again, all this is subjective for what you want. The next thing I want to do is the cylinder. I'm going to click on the cylinder since it's a boring bar, hover over and click on, and again, that cylinders, I just click on this right here, hit on that bigger square, it tells me it's 750, I'm verifying my choice, and hit next. plane connection is going to be in the back, so that way in case it ever goes into a machine, that's where it's going to hit first. So I simply go ahead and grab on the select plane. I grab the end of it, and you don't forget to hit the enter button when you're done. All right, so that looks pretty good. And I'll go ahead and hit next, and I'll hit OK one more time. All right, so that boring bar is pretty much defined. Now I'm going to define an insert. Well, when we pull this insert in, what happens is the boring bar does come in with an insert quite a few times. And whatever that insert is, I don't know. It could be any size. So what I'll wind up doing is I've got the boring bar set, and I'm going to hit Add Insert, and I'm going to click on the insert. And I'm going to define the insert as well. So when I define the insert, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and simply click on here. And I want to take the levels and pull them up again. And I notice that I've got a few more levels. I'm going to turn this level off. Now, the reason my level turns off so easily, even though it's clicked on here, is because I do have a habit of pulling my rules down and turning that active level is always visible. To me, it's just a hinder. It's really there in case you want to draw something, you start noticing your lines aren't there. So I just turn that off real quick, and everything I got is pretty good right here. Also, while I'm in here, I'm going to fix this up. I'm going to go ahead and tell it this is the insert that I want. So again, I can grab the insert, and it comes up there. It's on the screen, and I'll simply go ahead and analyze what this one is. Well, this insert name and stuff like that, in this case here, I'm not sure exactly what insert is, but I'll probably go by the radius of the tool. And I don't know the tool just yet, so what I'll do is I'll pick over here, and it says corner radius, and I'll click on it, grab the edge of it, and it tells me it's a 3125. So I'm going to go back and change that here. I'm going to put that one as a 0.03125. There we go. Radius. All right. There we go. And what I'll wind up doing here is I'll hit next. Now the cutting definition is kind of important for a lot of people. They want to go ahead and have many different ways of feeding the speed. So for example, if I go ahead and say this is for aluminum, then that's going to be coming up from aluminum, and there's tool 1, and I'll hold position, I'll leave alone, and I'll hit next. Now because this was already with the boring bar, I don't have to worry about trying to rotate it or do anything with it. I'm pretty good with it, so I'm going to leave it alone and hit next. The cutting plane, what I'm going to wind up doing on this one is simply, this is a flat where the screw comes down. So I'm going to go ahead and click onto the select plane, and then just wheel this over a little bit, and just snap onto that plane. All right, that looks pretty good. Now the only thing else I have is I know that the wireframe is a little high. Well, that's in the offset here. We're going to simply go ahead and click on the offset. And what we can do is go to the center point, and that's kind of where your boring bar is going to be residing at. And now everything looks good. We have the yellow, the insert's coming up. The blue indicates the profile that we want to. And again, we'll go ahead and hit next. All right, so I hit next one more time. I'll simply go ahead and go. I love going to the top view at this point. So this gives me a little bit of way of how this is going to wind up being into the machine. We're going to go ahead and put this into a hyperquadrix on the left spindle. So the best way for me to do is go step at a time. I'm going to be in a horizontal position. That looks pretty good. I'm going to be sitting there leaving onto the left spindle, as I said. And we're also going to go ahead and tell it counterclockwise. That's looking pretty good. So my insert's not facing me when I'm on the left spindle. And I feel all that looks good, and I'm ready to go to the next step. Now hit next, and I noticed that, that's not the way I'm is simply is to go ahead and do a couple of different changes. First of all, I'm not going to be holding it up in quadrant 1, so I'm going to pull it down, and I'm going to be touching this off into quadrant 4. The next thing I'm going to do is I just simply go ahead and do the tool center, and I like to go ahead and use it to where I grab on one intersection and the other intersection, and that pulls that tool down. Now, for many people in that, what they wind up doing is they stop at this point, but this is the critical point. We want to make sure exactly on how far we're allowed to cut with this insert. So what we can wind up doing is, if you're unfamiliar with it, you can hover over a picture, and that tells you it's going off the top height. So this is here. So again, I hovered over, and that's the height. So I go ahead and click from a line. I select the line first. And then the method I'm going to use is I'm going to go from an arc. So I click on the arc, go to that endpoint. There, that looks pretty good. Or you can just type that number in there. And then I'll go to the next one. Click on it, go into the angle, and then I like to go into the arc, click it, and go to the endpoint. Okay, that's looking pretty good. And then I'll go ahead and do next. And again, I'll fill in some things here. Let's just say, for an example, that again, for an example, 825 is going to wind up being our spindle speed for aluminum. We'll put this one here at 0.0125. And again, if we want any kind of step over or rough amount, amount of inch, retraction, all these things are here. And of course, your coolant as well. Maybe you want to put some coolant on here, and we're good to go. And select OK. All right, so we have this one here, and we feel pretty good. It's the aluminum. It's going to be the radius, and if we want to, we can go ahead and select OK. All right, so we got this 3D tool in there. But now the next step, that's what's going to happen is there's a lot of times where I have a 30-second radius, and I need to go ahead and actually place, for example, maybe something for stainless steel or things of that nature. Let's go back in here for a second. We right-click and edit the tool. Again, we're still in that kind of middle bar. The bar is not going to change. I'm good to there. And what we can wind up doing is we can actually add another cut definition. So how that works is we can just click on it. We can go ahead and define this one. And a lot of times what people do is too, you can actually copy this one here by a right click, and when you paste it, it puts one in here. And really all we need to do is do a couple of different things. We click in it, edit it, and a great way to do that is to change a few things. I'll go next, and really I'll keep it in 1. Maybe I'll go ahead and do this is going to be for 304 stainless, whatever you want. All right, and again I'll hit next. Everything else is still exactly where it needs to go because I copied it, so that saves me a lot of time. So the only thing it really is probably maybe my spindle speed, maybe at 385 or so, and maybe this one will wind up being at 0.008. Again, reference. I'm just throwing some things out there, and change what you want and select OK. All right, so now we got 2 of them in here. We got a 304, we got a stainless, and we're feeling pretty good about that. But let's take a look at what we have here. So before we get too far, I'm going to select OK. I do like to be very organized. So what I'm going to wind up doing is I'm going to actually turn on all the levels, and I'm going to simply go ahead and put on number 2. I'm going to go ahead and tell it this is a 0.03125 radius. There we go. And I'll just window over everything, and again, put that radius into that level. So no matter what, everything's nice and tidy on that level. All right, so I put this in there. I think I typed in 12, so I'll go back with everything. Let's do that again. I did type in 12, by the way. I hit move. There we go. Now what I'll do is I'll clear all the other levels up by right-clicking and simply come down and clear all, and I'm good to go. Now I know I got to pull another radius in here, and it's going to be a radius that probably doesn't even match the placement. That's going to happen quite a bit as well, and I'm going to show you a nice little tip to get that insert into the right spot. I'm going to put this one here into level 30, and I'm going to put this at 0.0156 insert. All right. Now I did that because I don't want to merge something in, and all of a sudden I have to deal with all the levels again. So let's see how this works. So now, again, as I come over here, I'll take a look at the insert, and we can see this insert's here. So what I can wind up doing is Control-C. There we go. And I'll go back over into the Kennametal site. I'll simply go up to the top. I'll do the Control-V and hit the search button. All right, so with the search button, what I'll wind up doing is, again, I know this is the insert, and you can see there's some different grades, but we do see the radius is different at a 15.6. We also know that this was here maybe for different grades of material. So I'm just going to go with this first one here and pick on this one. And what's going to happen is it's going to give me some information in regards to this in particular insert right here and whole size and things of that nature. Now I'll do the same thing as I did is I'll download it, and I'll simply, again, you can pick which one you want. They give different numbers. In this case here, I'll go to the second one and hit download. And again, you have to wait for that to come in, and you should be good to go with that one. All right, so let's do the same thing and stuff like that as that one there. You know it's going into my downloads. You know I'm going to place it into somewhere. In this case here, what I'm going to do just to save a little time in the video is I just put it under my inserts under the 15.6. Did nothing to it. This is the step file that downloaded, and I'm ready to go ahead and put this in here. Now, if you're familiar with how to drag and drop, you know if I drag this in here, it's just going to open up another library, and I don't want to do that. I want to merge in all my stuff, so that way anytime I have different inserts, I can go one file and have all that done. So what I'm going to wind up doing is when I left click and hold down, once you get in that graphics area, hold down your control key and let go, and that's going to do a merge function. Now with that merge function and stuff like that, I'm going to go ahead and hit cancel right here because it looks like it was trying to override it. So I'm going to hit cancel real quick and do that again. I'll go back over to this one here, and there again I'll go to my inserts. So I'll go ahead back to my inserts. There's this, and let me just drag it over here, hit the control key. There we go. So now what's going to happen is I have an insert here, but I want to make sure it's on the level that I want. So I go ahead and tell it active level. And I'm not even worried about the plane or anything. I just want to put it on that level and select OK. Now what happens is I know that I can go ahead and turn off this insert. And if I hit fit screen, this insert's here, but it's in La La Land somewhere. It's wherever it wants to be. And to prove that, when I turn on the boring bar, well, you can tell that they're not even mating it correctly. Now, I'm not a big fan of how it mates in the Mastercam when you go down to the tool list. I'm sure there's ways that people do it quickly, but I'm going to tell you the way I do it, and it works out really, really well and very quick. First of all, I'm going to go ahead and just go to the boring bar, and you can do this when you first do your boring bar, but I'm going to show you how I do this, and I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to zoom up right over here, and I'm going to actually just go ahead and make 2 lines in here, and notice they're at the bottom of the insert. Right to the bottom of the insert. So I simply go ahead and I'm in 3D mode. I just like this method a lot. I do it one time and I'm good. So I do a curve, one edge, and I pop that on there and I'm looking pretty good. And I come over into the plane manager and I come over and do a from geometry. I always pick what I want to line up. There's my wall, and it doesn't matter. That doesn't have to be 90 degree. I pick on that wall and select OK. And I'm going to go ahead and call this one boring bar. All right. Now the next thing I'll wind up doing is I kind of want to make sure that this area is over here as well, so it sinks right into that area. So I'm going to simply go ahead and select OK. I know that I'm going to be in 2D right now, and I'm going to make a curve right on one of these edges, and now it puts it straight down that middle. Well, the reason why I did this is because I wanted to go ahead and grab something in here. So I go back into my plane and boring bar, and I just pick on here and just find the center by hitting C, and it locates it. And I'll say yes. What I just did is I made a plane no matter where my insert is. I can grab an insert and tell it I want to put this into the position where the boring bar is. Notice center and this square right here. Let's see how that works. So I go to my level. I simply go ahead and go to level 30. And I don't even have the boring bar up, you can see. And what I do is I just kind of move this insert around a little bit. And the inserts up at the top, so I'm going to have to go ahead and make 2 lines where the insert is from the bottom. So I'm in 3D, I'm in 30, and I hit curve, one edge, there we go, and select OK. And again, why I did this is, and I'll look at this view from top and hit the Control C so I can see inside of it, and I'll make a plane here. I'll simply go to my plane manager, come down and say from geometry, X and Y, and select OK. And in this case here, I can call it, 0.0156 insert. It's not going to matter. It's just for temporarily. Then where do I want to have it? Well, I want to go right to the center there. There we go. So I got that insert right there, and I'm good to go there. All right. So let's see how this works. So what happens is I can simply go ahead and I've got a boring bar plane and I've got an insert plane. And I'm simply going to go ahead and come up here and do and let me go back and show you this. This is not in the, in the realm at all, right? It's not in the right spot at all, right? So what I'm going to wind up doing is I'm going to simply just turn off the boring bar and tell it transform to plane, window over the insert that I want to move, and just tell it I want to move from the insert plane over to the boring bar plane. And I want to use plane source origins and select OK. And now what happens is when I open up that boring bar and stuff like that, look at how that insert's beautiful matched right in there. Not a problem whatsoever. Looks out pretty good actually. And I do this a lot because I just don't like to go ahead and use the move and line and all that stuff in that other way. I think this works out really good. Okay, so the next thing is if you want to go ahead and use the insert, you can as well. I'm going to get a little detailed here. Again, maybe I don't need to, but this is just going to help you more organize. The same thing happens here. If you want to go ahead and put the name across the insert, please do. Okay, please put that name across the insert. You can do that and it'll work out really well. So let's go ahead and finish this up here. So what we're going to do is go back into the turning and go to Lathe Tool Manager. Next thing we're going to do is notice I've got this little icon here showing me that I got a couple inserts in here. Those are my 30-second inserts right now. It doesn't know anything about the 15. So I right click and I edit this tool. When I edit the tool, what's going to happen, it's still going to be the 750 boring bar, so I'm not worried about that. And I'm still going to keep the tool number in tool 1 and hit next. But in this case, I don't want to add anything to the primary insert. I'm just going to go ahead and tell it that I want to go ahead and add a definitely another insert. And I click on this and I hit the 3 dots and tell it I want to define the insert. Now I have to redefine this one because it's completely different than the other one. So I pull it over and I do a couple things here. I do 0.0156, enter. I tell it I simply want to grab the insert. I pick the insert that I want. All right, and then what will happen is I just move this over. And you can still see the shading of the other one. Nothing wrong, just gives 2 inserts in here. And if I want to go ahead and optimize it from my library, you can, and it'll take a second here and it'll optimize anything it can on that insert. All right, and then what I'll wind up doing is I'll just hit next. All right, corner radius, let's prove that out. Click on it, go to this edge. Perfect, 016. Just double checking me if I want my tool offset to 1. I am going to keep it the same. I'm not really going to change the name or anything, and hit next. I don't have to do any of this mating because I did it previously. That's why I love so much about using them transform plane to plane. It just saves you so much aggravation going through here as well. And hit next. Rotation angle on this one here. Again, I want to let you know that we don't have a tool that's going to have different points in it. So in this case here, it's just simple 0. And then again, that's really what it's going to wind up being is there's nothing changing on here. It's just the same type of tool. And once you're done with that, hit next and hit next one more time. And again, the same thing applies to this. It does look like I got it in the right spot. I'm looking at the top view. I hit next. Unfortunately, I still need to get it touched off correctly. So I come down here to quadrant 4. Again, nothing crazy about that. I still like to use my corners. So I grab from the corner to the edge. There we go. It should be moving that down. Beautiful. And what I'll wind up doing is I'll go ahead and simply, again, just double check everything. There's my line. I click on that. I go from the edge radius to the end. There we go. And I do the same thing here. Just the same thing. So it's a different insert, so I do have to go ahead and tell it where the control points are and where the edges of the inserts rely on to. Hit next. Maybe I have, again, 825 in here. Perhaps maybe 012. And this one can wind up being, like I said, that aluminum. So I pull this up on and with. That's my coolant. So let's go back and check, did we put it in the right spot? So what I mean by that is, do I know what type of or radius this is? Cutting definition, no. I want to put aluminum in here. All right. So there we go. So now I got aluminum, 15.6. Select OK. All right, there we go. So now we've got a couple things on here. We got an insert that has for aluminum. We have one for 304 that's a 30-second. And we also have this one for 15.6, and we're good to go with that one there. And that's how you go ahead and create those tools, and we select OK. Obviously, you would know you'd put that into the proper library. Please do. Make sure that's in the library. Let's see how this works, though. So I'm going to be in the top view here. And I'm just going to go put 50 in here, and I'm going to make it active. And I'm not going to do anything with this radius and that. It's all there. Always do make sure, though, you file save as, and you put it where you want to, so you can use that Mastercam file anytime you want. Even though they're step files, that's fine. But once you make it a Mastercam file, you can always go back to that file and change some things. Well, let's see how this works. So what I'm going to wind up doing is show an axis here, and I'm going to simply just make a quick wireframe. Nothing crazy on this whatsoever. Again, I would always wind up probably doing a solid or so, but just kind of real quickly just showing you how this is going to work. Where we go. Good enough for right now. That's all I really need. Just some type of line showing you how this is going to trace in there. All right. So if we go to the top, and again, I do a stock and things of that nature. This is just for the speed of the video, and I don't need this in here. So I go and do a turning, and I do a finish. And I want to let you know that I chain this and select OK. And again, we have this tool that's here, and we we simply just tell it, hey, look, right click or left click on it, and just to make sure, you can say select insert cutting definition. Look at that. Look how easy that was to do that. What do we want to do? Well, maybe I want to do it for aluminum for 31.2. Select OK, and there you go. And now when I backplot this, I can go ahead and play this. There you go. And you'll see that I scroll up on there, but I'm going to show you that, it is showing that 30-second. What you're seeing is a shadow of that 6th or 15th, but it is calculating for that. But I'm going to again show you another little tip in that, so that way you don't have to look at that. It kind of confuses people. I'm going to do another one. I'm going to Control C, Control V. There we go. And I'm going to do another one here, and I'm going to simply say I want to do the same path, but I want to select a different cutting definition. And this time I want to go ahead and do a 15th thou aluminum and select OK with that one. All right, let's see. Select OK. I'll regenerate it, backplot it, and there we go. Now I got that 15 thousandths in there. It's looking really good. And the reason why people don't really say much about this one is because they can see it really easy with that there. But really, when you look around, it's still showing that gray area. It's just showing you what's not being used. So a little tip that I have for you is, again, is you can pick any insert you want. It's going to go ahead and work. But if you don't like to see this one here, for an example, I'll show this one again. That's that 30-second one. And as I pull this over there, I mean, it is showing good, but you just have that, that gray phantom line with that. So here's what I do. So it's the same tool and everything else, but what you could wind up doing is just go to your tool library if you feel uncomfortable with that. Click on it and just say, look, you want to go ahead and do a copy, and we'll do a right click and paste that tool in there and hit yes. Then with the copy paste routine, I'm going to come over here and double click on it, and I'm going to simply go ahead and tell it, 0.03125, just to give me something that this is what I want to look at, and I hit next. Now, the reason why I'm showing you this is because, that 30-second didn't show good because of that right here, this 15.6 was in here. Well, you can always delete them out of there. In other words, it's going to be in your library anyway. So you can delete what's in here. That's completely fine. And now you only are showing your tool for this. It's the same tool, same number, everything else. I hit OK to it. All right, there we go. And again, tool 1, it's all the same. It's just a matter of now when I regenerate it and backplot it, I don't have to see the kind of like shadow amount. Look at this. See this here? I want to get rid of that. That was the whole purpose of that. So let's make sure we're there. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this over here. And I want to make sure I got the right one. Say I had this one. I want to grab this one. Okay, that's the one I just copied and made. Let's see the difference here. All right, backplot that. There we go. Pull it over. All right, and there we go. So now, it's the same tool. I'm just trying to show you that if you don't like to see that shadow, it's bothering you, and it looks like it's kind of digging in, it's not, then just copy that tool and get rid of what you want. You still have it in your library, in your main library, so you're really not losing it. Just make sure you stay in your library. So now, again, if I come back over to Lathe and back this up, you'll see this as well. So I hope this video helped. I do a lot of multiple inserts and label them. Get creative. Go ahead and do your boring bar. Show something on there and stuff, so that way you're never going to get confused. Again, nice writing. Put them on your inserts. Do whatever you need to do, and I think that'll help you out. So hopefully this video, Annette, stepped you through some ways how you can do multiple inserts along with multiple radiuses as well. Thank you.